Beef costs about 14% more right now than it did a year ago, so a pack freezer like this one isn't just food. It's a few $100s sitting in a box, and when the power goes out, it's only a matter of time before all of it spoils. The good news, though, is that you don't need a generator to save it. While they're definitely the first thing that most people think of, generators are loud, expensive, and a lot of folks just don't have one, but there are plenty of other things that you can do to help your food stay cold. You just have to plan ahead a little. And for this, I'm going to split the video into two halves. The first will cover things that you can do now, and then the second half will cover what to do after the power actually goes out. But when it comes to keeping food cold and safe to eat, there are three numbers that you have to keep in mind. First is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's sort of the red line for food safety, and once your food gets warmer than that for 2 hours, then you're in the danger zone because bacteria will start to grow very rapidly after that point. Then second is the length of time that your appliance will hold a safe temperature. A fridge that stays closed will stay safe for around 4 hours, while a full freezer will do so for around 48 hours. A freezer that's only half full, though, will only stay safe for around 24 hours, and we'll talk more about how to deal with that here in a minute. Then the third number that you need to think about is the length of time that you expect a power outage to last, because the right thing to do is dependent on that. If it's going to be short, like a few hours because a stupid squirrel fried itself on a transformer, then just keep everything shut and ride it out using the cold air that's already tucked away in your appliance. But for longer term outages, like those that happen after a major storm or some crazy one-off cyber attack, gather all of your most important foods into your box freezer if you have one. But the first method that you can use to keep your food cold is totally free, and it's kind of the foundation for a lot of what we'll talk about later in the video. Like I said a minute ago, a full freezer will stay cold a lot longer than one that's only half full, and the reason for that is simple. Dense frozen masses like packages of ground beef or ice hold the cold. Empty airspace, though, warms up a lot faster. So if you have a big freezer with a lot of extra space, you want to fill in as much of that as you can. One thing that you can do is take empty containers like water bottles and 2-liter jugs, fill them with water, and then freeze them now. When you do this, though, leave a few inches of headspace at the top because water expands when it freezes, and a jug filled to the top is going to split out and it'll make a huge mess if it ever thaws out. I also wouldn't use milk jug style containers since they're pretty flimsy. The advantage to doing this, though, is that those frozen containers will basically act as cold batteries. When the power goes out, you'll have solid blocks of ice that'll basically convert your modern freezer into an old school ice box. You can also move them wherever you need them, like a separate cooler, and then when they eventually do melt, then you'll have clean water that you can use for other tasks like drinking or washing hands. Then the second method that you can use builds on that, and that's having a high quality cooler. But for this, it's a good idea to spend a little bit of money. The little thin foam coolers like what you get from gas stations aren't going to keep things cold for days at a time. They're really designed more for little things like an afternoon at the lake. Instead, you want something with thick walls and a real gasket around the lid. Coolers like the Yeti Tundra or an Arctic can hold ice for days at a time, but they are pretty expensive. If you need something more budget friendly, then the Coleman Extreme costs a lot less, but it'll still hold the cold a lot better than the little cheapy foam boxes will. But like with freezers, you want to keep these as full as you can so that they keep themselves cool longer, and also put them in the coolest, shadiest spot that you can, because like sticking it on hot concrete out in the sun isn't going to help things at all. You could even dig a hole and set the cooler inside of it. Doing that would insulate it from the warm ambient air around it, and if you cover the top, then it'll protect it from sunlight too. But even though being able to keep expensive foods like meat is extremely important, all of us should have plenty of food that doesn't need to be refrigerated at all, and that's what my new course, the 30-Day Prepper Pantry, walks you through. It shows exactly what to buy and how much, along with recipes and cooking instructions to help everything last for a full month. You can still get it at its introductory price from now until Friday, June 27th. using the links in the description and the pinned comment down below. But anyway, back to keeping cold stuff cold. The third method you can use is about as close to using a real fridge as you can get, and that's a 12-volt refrigerator freezer. The good thing about these is that they pull way less power than a full-size fridge or freezer, and a lot of the newer ones can accept a battery that plugs right into them. The EcoFlow Glacier Classic is an example of this. You can get it with a 298 watt-hour battery that can provide up to like 40 hours of cooling if you're using it as a refrigerator, or around 19 hours if you're using it as a freezer. Of course, those are manufacturer numbers, so what you get out in the real world is probably going to be lower, especially if the ambient temperature outside of the unit is much warmer. But like with coolers, keep it in the shade and you'll end up getting a lot more performance out of it. But what makes these viable as off-grid setups is the fact that you can recharge them. You can connect the fridge directly to solar panels, which allows you to top the battery off during the day without ever needing to connect it to a power station or a generator. Of course, you can recharge the battery from one of those if you have one, and then you can use the 12-volt plug in your car as well. But these do have a couple of downsides though. First, they're definitely not cheap, and if you're only using them for like emergency preparedness, it may be kind of hard to justify the cost. But if you do things like bring snacks or drinks to your kids' Little League games, then they make a little more sense. And another thing about them is that they take up a lot of space, but aren't able to hold as much food as your normal fridge or freezer. So even with one of these, you're still going to lose a lot of your perishables. So really, it's best to think of them as a way to preserve your most important stuff. Things like medications have to be kept cold, or more expensive foods like meat. Then the fourth way that you can keep food cold is sort of cheating a little bit, and that's using a power station to run a box freezer. Refrigerators use a lot more power than a small box freezer does, so to be able to run one, you have to have a power source that can handle both their wattage and can keep going for an extended period of time, and that disqualifies pretty much all small power stations and most mid-size ones too. But in addition to using less power, box freezers have some other advantages that make them better for longer-term power outages. Since they open from the top, when you open the lid, the cold air sinks, meaning that it doesn't spill out like what happens when you open a fridge. Then most people set their freezers to 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, so the food inside of them has a lot further to go before it eventually reaches that critical 40-degree temperature. So instead of leaving it plugged in around the clock and draining your battery, you can run it on a duty cycle instead. Plug it in for like an hour to pull the temperature back down, and then let it just coast for a few hours. And then you repeat that cycle. Doing that will allow even a mid-size 1 or 2 kilowatt hour system to power a freezer for multiple days instead of for just a few hours like what you'd get with a fridge. But with this, you have to keep a couple of things in mind. First, you need to know how many running watts and how many surge watts that your freezer pulls, along with what your power station can actually handle. A lot of power stations that are smaller than 1 kilowatt hour just aren't going to be able to handle the surge watts. Then you're also going to need a way to recharge your power station. If you don't have a generator, then you're going to need to rely on solar panels or charge it off of your vehicle. And if you're going to use your car, then it's a good idea to have a few gas cans on hand so that you can keep doing that long term. After that, the fifth method is one that most folks haven't even heard of, and that's a propane absorption fridge. These are basically the same thing as what you'll find in like an RV or a travel trailer. They don't use a compressor, have any moving parts, or use electricity. Instead, they pull cold right out of a propane flame, which does sound a little counterintuitive, but these are actually pretty old proven technology, and they have some very impressive run times. One of those can run on weeks on just one 20-pound propane cylinder. Then if you get a 3-way propane fridge, you can run it using propane, 12-volt power, or the 120-volt AC power that you have in your home or from a generator. So they're useful for both emergencies and also daily convenience. Like if you have a home office, you can use it there to keep your lunch and snacks cold, and then move your meat into it during a power outage. But there are a couple of things to know about these. First, absorption fridges need to sit level to work, so you're going to have to set them up in a nice stable location. Then second, these don't get as cold as other types of refrigerators or freezers, and they do struggle in high heat. So keeping them in the shade is especially important. And third, they're not cheap or easy to find locally, so you'll have to be willing to invest a little bit of money and do that ahead of time. When it comes to safety, propane fridges burn fuel, so they are going to need ventilation. Don't try to set them up in a closed, airtight room. always do things like follow the manufacturer's instructions, keep a carbon monoxide detector nearby along with a fire extinguisher, and also use a long adapter hose so that you don't have to keep a full-size propane cylinder inside of your home. And then don't forget to store plenty of propane. While the fridges can run for a while on just one 20-pound cylinder, be sure to consider your fuel needs for other equipment that you may be using at the same time. That can include things like camp stoves and also heaters during the winter, because a lot of preppers, they kind of just focus on one appliance that they're going to be running, and then they forget about everything else. And when they try to run everything all at once, then their fuel lasts for like a fraction of the time that what they're expecting. But even if you haven't been able to do anything ahead of time, there are still some things that you can do to help your food stay cool for a little longer. First, just keep the doors on your fridge and freezer shut. Every time that you open them, you lose a ton of cold air, so keep them closed from the second that you lose power. And if you have to open them, decide ahead of time what you need to grab and get it quickly. Don't stand there forever with the door open. You can also write down an inventory of what's in the fridge and tape it to the front of it to reduce fridge spelunking from family members, and also put tape over the handle as kind of a reminder to not just open it up willy-nilly. It's also a good idea to put an appliance thermometer in your fridge and another one in your freezer. Those only cost a few bucks, but when the power's out, they'll keep you from having to guess whether or not your food has hit that 40-degree threshold. And then for your freezer, if your food still has ice crystals or it's at 40 degrees or below, then it is safe to refreeze. You don't have to toss it just because it thawed out a little bit. And knowing that one rule can end up saving hundreds of dollars worth of food. Then the seventh method that you can use to keep food cold is to take the most important food out of your fridge and load it into the freezer or cooler. Good candidates for that are things like meat, dairy, and eggs. And when you're doing this, be sure to pack everything as full as you can. This is a great time to use the frozen jugs that we talked about earlier in the video. Just remember to place them on the top of the food, since that cold will sink down. If you have a backup power source, then you can use that to power the freezer or electric cooler that you've consolidated everything into. And as always, keep it shut as much as possible. That'll help food and coolers stay cold, and it'll also reduce how much energy or fuel that you have to use if you have some sort of powered option. But the bottom line is that most people aren't going to be able to do everything that we've talked about today. So here's how I would prioritize all of this. First, go ahead and freeze some jugs today and stick them in your freezer. Also, if you can afford it, pick up a good cooler. After that, if you have a little extra money to spend, get a 12-volt fridge with a battery along with a set of solar panels to keep it powered up. Or, if you already have a small box freezer, then pick up a power station with a capacity of at least 1 kilowatt hour. If you can't afford panels at the same time, then pick up a car charging cable if one isn't included. Then after that, if you're really concerned about longer term situations, just get yourself a propane absorption fridge and a couple of propane cylinders. For my family though, our plan is the second tier, which is the box freezer and power station combo. Realistically, that's good enough for the vast majority of situations that we could experience. But if you want to see a full breakdown of what power stations of different sizes can actually do, then be sure to check out this video. Or if you want to see how to stay cool during a summer power outage, then click here. And also be sure to check out the links in the description and pinned comment below to sign up for the 30-day Prepper Pantry course if you haven't done so already. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.